very final scene. We shot it chronologically. That was also another rule of the film, and we were
That's
lucky.
the only film we shot chronologically.
Yeah, I mean,
because
it's the only one that
we didn't.
allowed it. Or that was just the rules because I knew
But
we
it
were
was
going
the
to keep.
first time we were doing that process of collaborative work
Yeah.
in the writing and everything. So it was new to us. The
And it
second
felt
film,
really
we went to
dangerous.
that right away. You
Oh
know?
yeah.
The first one, I mean, I just found a letter that you gave me in the middle of production that, of Before Sunrise, in which you said, I know, it was strange, obviously, you said, I know this is a new way of working, it is for all of us, but I really appreciate you guys being, like, it did feel strange, because Julie and I were sharing a lot of ourselves in that movie. And as, you know, Sunset and Midnight continued on, that process defined itself, but in the beginning it was...
Yeah, I mean, we were inventing it. I had worked that way to whatever degree in my previous films, but this was so intimate. Those had been big ensembles.
Yeah.
This was the three of us.
And I remember
So
in the-
that was really special, but I knew it had to be so fine-tuned to work. You know, there was
to,
no room
and unique to the individuals.
Yeah.
In the opening of the second movie, my character is being interviewed about having written a book, and we put in that movie. I remember Rick saying a very beautiful thing to me about what he wanted Before Sunrise to be, which is that, you know, you hadn't ever worked for the CIA, you hadn't been in a gunfight, you hadn't been in a helicopter crash, but your life had been full of drama, and that if you could actually make a movie about two people connecting, but they needed to be a real connection, they needed to be real people, and that could be a movie, and that's what we kind of put as the thesis statement in front of the second film. How are we doing, by the way, with that? I feel like should we go into questions and we lost it?
Well, let's get through the second film.
Okay.
And
Did I skillfully get to the second
It's like
film?
a pretty smooth segue.
Interesting,
Pretty smooth.
Interesting to bring up the second film. I need to be patted on the back anytime I
All
do
the
anything
time.
remotely interesting.
Trust me.
No, but the
Thank you.
But the
This is an
second film,
Explorers fan
let's
over
jump to
there.
the second film. The second film was the scariest leap, I think.
Because
any
no
of
one,
us have ever-
well, I got fired by my agent because
Like,
he said, why are you writing a sequel to
a movie nobody
that will
saw?
never be made, and if it's made, no one will see it. So he fired me. It's like, you should focus in getting sexy Latinas. I was like, okay. Parts in movies.
no, yeah, the
I was
second
auditioning
film.
for, what was I auditioning for? Rush Hour 2.
Oh, really?
Didn't get
You were the booby cries of that.
But go on.
Go on,
That's fine.
sorry.
But
it was
yeah, we make the joke, but it is kind of true. No one wanted a sequel to that first film. The punchline is, oh, it's the lowest grossing film to ever spawn a sequel.
Yeah.
And someone corrected me on that years later. That was our punchline 9 years
It's
ago.
not actually
And someone
true?
said, no, actually, there was a trauma film, I think Toxic Avenger, one of those kind of
Oh, yeah.
films
Yeah.
that do huge on video, but
Right.
theatrically, no.
All right,
not
so,
good.
we've been kidding
but
ourselves.
I still think it works. You know.
The joke lands.
But that was, yeah, I mean, it was about, somewhere along the way, we just realized Jesse and Celine were still kind of alive in us.
I remember I saw one thing like online when Before Sunset came out, and somebody had said, well, those guys sure believe in themselves.
Yeah, so it was really the three of us and on that film. And that was scary going back in because you realize the first one had been special to us. So if you screw up a sequel, then it kind of cheapens the first one, or it sort of negates
I worried
it
that's
in
his
some way.
third film too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It only increased. So
Even more,
It,
I think.
it felt kind of risky and scary, but it was something we were all compelled to do. So in the artistic area, that's the right sweet spot, to be compelled and kind of scared too. That keeps you working hard.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
And we also felt incredibly, I remember all three of us felt so grateful the second time that we were allowed to do it, because it felt like a very personal film, and it's not something one should feel entitled to get to do. We felt really privileged that we were.
I know, every day we looked at it like, how are they letting us do this? I mean,
I know.
our budget hadn't gone up a penny in 9 years. we got that same budget. And instead of 25 days, we shot it in 15 days.
Yeah.
But that's all we needed. We had less scenes and
Longer scenes,
Yeah, we were able to do that.
Not
The
very
thing that was hard about the
characters,
second film was the fact that it was time continuous, so that
Oh, yeah.
I
Now
mean,
and a half.
the movie was edited by the time it was shot, because part of the whole thesis of Before Sunset is that you know, you see it's 90 minutes of their life.
The first film was more conventional. I mean, it's not that conventional, but there were a couple scenes we didn't use. There was a couple brief conversations that I was able to just cut out of the movie entirely for pacing. And
The second film, there was no.
and the way it jumped around, it was like 18 hours of your lives. But the second one, the high wire act, the paint ourselves into a corner.
You couldn't cut anything really.
There was
Just maybe a
nothing to
sentence
cut. It
there.
had to work. It had to work like a play. So that was like, whoa. I mean, that was.
But the good
But
thing
that
is
put it
that
on you guys. That
we
was so
worked-
hard.
We worked
Agreed.
from the beginning on the screenplay, so we knew that when we started writing it, that we needed
Yeah,
it to
we
be
had
like a
these
play. So
conceits.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally when you're shooting a movie, you can shoot a scene and go, well, if it doesn't work, we'll cut it. But we, you know, when Rick was doing 9-minute takes, 7-minute takes, 8-minute takes.
Nothing you can do.
So there's nothing, it wasn't going to be
It's better
saved in
work.
the editing room.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
save everything in the editing
And the
room,
way-
not in those films. You can't do that.
The way it flowed one scene into the next, kind of in that real time unfolding, you couldn't just cut and be across town somewhere. It had to feel continuous. So
Yeah.
that was a huge challenge for a film that seemed so simple. That was the huge.
But I remember
Challenge.
the look on your face after the first take of the second movie. Rick had this expression on your face I've never seen it before, and I was like, "What?" He says, "It's just so good to see the characters again."
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm really seeing Jesse and Celine
Yeah, it's just-
again. It was.
It's always, as a director, you have that front row seat. It's like,
Yeah.
they're back. Because there's Ethan and Julie, and then there's Jesse and Celine.
And Jesse and
They're not
Celine are
the
much
same.
better than you.
Yeah.
I prefer Jesse and Celine. I have to put up with Ethan. But,
All right, should we move on to the third film?
let's tell everything about what else about the second film?
Well,
we were in Paris. That was fun.
Yeah.
You know, the locations, the third character in all these is always where we're
Yeah.
shooting. The first one was Vienna. Technically, probably could have been anywhere, like I said early, it was written for another town. Just we adjusted it to Vienna. Second one was very much Paris. You know, your character lived there,
Yeah.
you were working. Definitely a different stage of life, you know, in your early 30s now. So. But then after the second film came out, unlike the first film, I think the way that film ends, maybe.
People expected.
Yeah,
maybe
every
third
one of us, whenever we had another film come out, that was always a question. Oh, Jesse and
Should we
Celine
do a
ever-
third?
I would
Yeah.
go on meetings for other movies, and the directors would want to sit and talk to me about what they thought the third film should be.
I know.
Everybody had this idea
Yeah.
about, you know.
Yeah, the second film, there was really no pressure in that regard because no one
expected a sequel.
Yeah, this one, it was almost, we entered into this kind of with, oh, there was some notion of, there were some people out there who kind of cared about Jesse and Celine and had some expectation. But I can't feel like that affected us. We just,
Yeah.
we did the film pretty quietly in Greece last summer, so no one really knew we were filming.
Well, we didn't know
Still,
we were going to
the
film
pressure was on ourselves.
until a
That
few weeks
bar
before
was
we
on-
did. So. I mean, like.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like. I mean, I was like.
Well, we didn't know if you were gonna
Show up.
Show up.
She could dry out, you know. And they're-
After 18 years of drinking.
But it really had, we could ask like, when did you know? It really had the same creative trajectory, or very similar to the second one and the third. It was about 5 years of maybe joking about it,
Talking
but
about
not
it.
a serious idea. 5 or
Getting
6
together.
years. And then
2 years.
we start
We met
talking
in
and-
2010 here in New York. Just talked about it vaguely, like what it would be, where, how.
We just needed to get a sense on both the other movies that we all kind of wanted to write about the same subject matter.
Yeah.
You know, like if one person had wanted to write about, I mean, there's so many scenarios that the characters could be in, but if we're all on the same page about what stage of life they're in, what things they're thinking about, and it kind of becomes clear. You know, I remember, Rick, you had kind of an image in your head that where you could see Jesse and Celine talking, and a lot of things, even from one image of the two characters, you could extrapolate a movie around just one central idea.
And we have this luxury of time, this extra couple of years. Most films don't. You get on a track, you have an idea, you have a script, you're moving toward production, if you're lucky, you know, to be actually making a film. And you don't get an extra year to think about
To
it.
muse
You know,
on
we
it.
can we can have an idea in our head 6 months, somewhere between when we kind of think we're making the leap again to the time we're actually sitting down to do the hard work of writing the script. That might be a couple years. There's an outline.
We think about it.
Yeah, like I remember having an idea that we talked about a lot, and then that just sort of went away about but it really dialed in a lot about the characters. When we talked about meeting you, it's weird because you guys haven't seen the film, so I don't know. But remember we talked about
It's really good. Just assume you loved it, and then we'll move on from there.
But yeah, we get to explore a bunch of ideas around that, and then you get to go, is it that interesting? You know? Is that
But
kind
it's
of
good to have
boring?
time
Is that
because
kind of, am I moved by that still 6 months later? It's like, if the answer's no, keep
Ouch.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep digging in.
We have this huge benefit of having each other to.
As guards.
Yeah, it's like I'll get real excited about an idea, and Julie can say, yeah, but that seems kind of something that's
Pretentious,
not good.
usually.
I was gonna say that when I thought, it's a cheap joke. You did it. Again,
My
pleasure. But we help each other that way, you know. And then if an idea is good, then we'll fight for it and find out. Okay, that idea may be pretentious, but there's something interesting about it, and so we'll get rid of the potential. Or hopefully, you know, we can use each other to kind of sand everything down.
It's kind of like a process. I think it's like we're sort of subtly, in a really nice way, pushing each other and then supporting each other too. Like Julie might, I mean, we really do have a good time. We sit in a room and we bullshit for like 12 hours straight. And that gives us room to just free associate. Yeah, we digress. We talk about Julie says something extremely like crude, and then we'll go, you know what? That's funny.
Yeah.
And we'll push, you know, like, oh, can that work its way in here?
And then all
can we
of a
do
sudden,
that? Yes, we can. You know, it's just like you might say something, and it takes the other two to go, oh, that, you know, keep following that thought. So that gives you courage maybe to follow a thought. Or like Ethan just said, you have an idea you're really excited about. And if you look
and
up
you
and
get
see
two blank faces.
Two blank faces.
or just that little like, yeah, maybe I've.
But it's pretty
I've
quick.
seen
We
that
work together
before.
so much, like we kind of read each other. Like I know when for example, if I lose my mind about something, and I see their look on their face, it's like, oh, they like it, like in the middle of my losing my mind about something that has nothing to do with the film necessarily. They're like, oh, you know. And then we get and then we get into that and write it, and you know, and then it becomes relevant to the film and the story because actually, you know, I think emotions, you know, are, you know, relevant, or what I mean is like, you know, it's you know, actually, no, I don't want to say that. That was going to sound a little pretentious, and that's not my thing.
But no,
Let me see what she did.
But our dialogues, we all had permission to talk about anything we want, but we're working, we're steering it all toward what does that have to do with Jesse and Celine? Where does that fit in the movie? Where are they at?
And if it doesn't fit, it's out.
It just goes out. I mean, so much material is generated, so such a small percentage makes, you know, the final film. But it's always been that way.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of stuff on the floor that I think the three of us still like a lot of this material, but it just looks.
Just put it in the next one.
It just didn't. Or not. There's probably things we've been trying to get into 3 films now.
Oh, Tolstoy's brother. He hasn't made it in any of them.
When you're 80.
This idea Rick has about Tolstoy's older brother that I thought was brilliant, but it got cut from the first movie and put it in the second. Got cut.
Remember, you were
put it in
always
the third one.
I
Nikolai.
delivered it in the third or the second. Was it?
We tried. What is it?
My favorite moment of the first film, we'd be reading the script and Ethan would go over some section and go, "You're talking about Rick, how did this film get financed? This is the biggest bunch of crap. You know, like this is so pretentious." I'm like, I don't know. Martin Schaefer at Castle Rock, bless him, thought this could be a good movie.
Should we open up to some questions?
Yeah, we'd really like to just have a discussion.
Yeah. I mean, it must be strange for you
We're
guys
eating our own
to be here
tail
for film that you haven't gotten to see yet. It's kind of annoying.
What is the panel about, by the way? I'm not even sure. Is it about the film? Yeah.
We're the series.
Oh, it's the director.
This is the panel.
Oh, this is the panel. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
you're here.
It's a director series. You were interviewing the director.
Yeah,
That's what
Oh, yeah. So we're interviewing you.
we were supposed to be
Okay.
talking about.
Yeah.
This is a hybrid. We're all directors.
Help us.
Yes.